What was it like that? So I've been to Ibiza in the last sort of like 10, 15 years, but I think it's commercialised a lot now. But what was it like going back there? Yeah.
Freedom, escapism, no rules, no red tape, no corporates.
With the Gen Zs that you're employing, you're not just saying, I'm going to go for the person that's got the experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to hire somebody because they're the right person and they're going to be on this journey with me and I'm going to give them a chance.
They're like sponges. Gen Zs are like sponges, but you've got to give them the freedom to be sponges and give them the freedom to be creative. Then let them go. Just guide them. They keep me on my toes.
Did you know what you were doing when you launched that first festival?
I didn't have a clue.
When I think about building the podcast, for example, I've got no time frame for how long it's going to last. Did you think the same about Bournemouth Sevens, to be able to say, I'm willing to commit to a 10-year contract?
I had to.
What's the biggest risk you've taken in your entrepreneurial journey?
The biggest risk, 100%, is launching.
You started building the business, you're doing all these events every week. Then what was the point at which you decided, I'm going to launch a festival? Dodge, welcome to Ambitious Minds podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jay. My pleasure. It's been a while.
I've been looking forward to this for a while. And I actually want to go back to the first time that we met.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that you said to me when I asked you what you do, you said to me you're a podcast host. But then I've gone away and I've listened to your podcast a lot. I've sort of deep dived into it. And I've actually discovered that you're a very successful entrepreneur. And I want to know, why did you actually describe yourself as a podcast host when I first met you?
We met at the World Cup, didn't we?
Yeah,
in
rugby
Paris.
Paris, yeah.
Having a long lunch.
Yeah.
That's right. You and your fiance?
Girlfriend.
Girlfriend.
You want to be fiance.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember having a long lunch. And it was funny, in fact, because I got invited out there for the semi-finals of Alex Anderson, who's obviously a face in the rugby world. And we're having a long lunch and we got chatting to different people and had a really good chat with you. And I'm not too sure really why. Maybe... I couldn't tell you why. Normally, I would say I'm a festival owner, promoter, entrepreneur, and podcast host would probably be the last one I'd say. But yeah I'm not too sure.
Because I'm glad that we actually met, and you did say that, because I'm a massive podcast listener and I'm now a big fan of your show. Yeah. But then also, it was inspiration for me to start this. So I'm going to start this podcast by actually saying thank you.
My pleasure.
For sort of giving me that inspiration to actually go ahead and do it, because you've been, backwards and forwards a few times and sort of given me some inspiration. But I actually want to go back to the start for you. And have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Well, growing up, there was no such thing as entrepreneur. People would, that word wouldn't be used in the 80s, 90s. It just wouldn't be used. It was like how people were earning money, people wheeling and dealing, people buying something for a tenner and sell it for 20 quid. And there was the entrepreneurial spirit, and really growing up, I was living above pubs in London. So that was the world I was in. It was a very different upbringing for a kid. But I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
What was it? So growing up as a kid, what was it that you loved about sort of living above the pub?
The buzz, the people. Mum and dad had a really busy pub on the River Thames, and next door we had a nightclub. It was just buzzing the whole time. It was people coming in. You saw all walks of life. And that's why I love people so much, and my career has been bringing people together and putting smiles on faces for the last 3 decades. And now doing that with a podcast, But it was the buzz. It was being around doormen. It was being around, they're known as gangsters, but they weren't. But they are now. They've been written books and
local gangsters.
Local, they are. That's just the way it was in London at the time. And there were people coming in. It was a toxic environment. People boozed. You'd see happy people. You'd see fights. You'd see police raids. You would see people earning money in the pub. You would see people celebrating. You see people dancing. You see people in fancy dress. I saw everything, And the nightclub next door, I used to spend quite a bit of time in as well in my younger years.
How much has that nightclub scene changed over the years? Because now it isn't what it used to be. It isn't what it used to be when I was younger.
Yeah.
But what was it like then?
Amazing. Literally amazing. Well, growing up as a 10-year-old selling tickets to the nightclub next door, that's what I started earning money as a 10-year-old. I'd go to the nightclub next door, buy tickets for a quid off him, 20 off the manager. I'd have 20 tickets, go to dad.
10 years old?
Yeah, 10 years old. And I would go to the pub go to our pub, and all the people there, if you remember back then, I don't know if people were listening, but back then you'd go boozing at 7 o'clock and you'd leave a pub at 10:30 to go to a nightclub. I'd sell the tickets to 20 people in the pub, but these tickets got them queue jump.
Interesting.
So it was a win-win. So I was earning £1, the manager was earning his quid, I'd come out of 20 quid after half an hour's work or an hour's work, And I did that every single Saturday. But 20 quid as a 10-year-old was a serious amount of money. A serious amount of money in the 80s, you know? So, and it was creating win-win situations, Jay. It was creating a situation where the people leaving the pub were getting queue jump. The manager was getting his pound.
So you were doing queue jump as a 10-year-old
Yes.
for people going to a nightclub?
Yes.
Who was telling you to do that?
Me, my mum, my dad, the doorman. You know, I grew up with entrepreneurs. I grew up with people who earned a pound note. Dad was a bodybuilder back in the day, and he was a big face, and he was one of the main faces around the area we lived. I had a huge amount of respect. Very loyal, good, strong man. Mum was a proper entrepreneur, and it was always about earning money. So it was inbred into me, and how do you earn money? Well, I was thinking, hold on a minute, I could earn money doing that. I could earn money outside the pub. We're selling on bank holiday weekends, I'll be selling hot dogs or ice creams, depending on the weather. You know, as a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old, every single bank holiday, I was doing like 600 quid net profit. You know, it's just serious money. And then you would do sale of returns. So you go to cash and carry, I'd buy all the ice creams, and I'd buy all the hot dogs. Set up a stand outside for bank holiday weekend because all the walk-by trade was going through down the River Thames. And if it was boiling hot, I'd sell loads of ice creams. And if it wasn't hot, I'd sell loads of hot dogs. And whatever I didn't sell, I'd be able to take back to the cash and carry on after the weekend. So I was constantly earning money as a kid, and I loved it. I'd go fishing outside the pub. There was an Indian restaurant next door underneath the nightclub. Go fishing outside the pub. And every fish I caught, I would sell it for £1. To the
£1 fish.
£1 fish. You know that song, that £1 fish. Yeah. But that's just what I was doing. I was just earning money, and I loved the buzz of it. Mum and Dad were constantly earning money, you know, and it was all cash. It was life.
So corporate career was never in your vocabulary?
Never the slightest, ever. I knew at school, you know, I found it very difficult to learn at school in terms of my attention span, and I was always wanted to be the one who's always making people laugh in class and being disruptive in a happy disruptive way. But I always just wanted to be on the sports field. That was my world. Sport, business, earning money. I knew that playing around with Bunsen burners or trying to learn algebra or Latin or some of these weird subjects wasn't going to do me any good, you know.
So why'd you go to uni then?
I'll tell you why I went to uni. Because as I was getting older and older, the money was getting bigger and bigger any way I was earning money. And I went to uni. It was sports uni. I didn't have the education. I didn't have A levels. I didn't do A levels, but I got in through the back door.
Interesting.
Everyone had to have an A, and a B. I did no A levels, so I was getting in there through sport, and it was through sport. And that was my main one. It was a Loughborough Sports University. So my teachers at the time were going, "You're going to love it up there, Dodge. Go and play sport all day long." And literally, it was like Butlins on steroids. It was unbelievable. I got there in the mid-90s. I was like, this is unbelievable. The lads were going on the beers every Wednesday after rugby, every Saturday after rugby. People going to nightclubs 4 days a week. And I went there, and from a young kid, my mum always said, always taught me, pound a man. Pound a man. That's the most powerful thing she could ever have taught me.
And how many men or people in the university?
12,000. So when I got dropped off at uni, my mum, at school there was 400 kids. I was earning money off the kids at school. And then senior school was 500 kids, and then it went from 500 to 12,000. So I got to uni, I was looking around going, this is a gold mine if I know what to sell. An absolute gold mine. And it ended up being an absolute gold mine for all the years I was there.
So you started doing club promotion?
Yeah.
How quickly did you realise that was the thing to make money from?
Really quickly. Super quick. Because when I went to Ibiza at the age of 17, for 2 weeks with the lads. 2 weeks is way too long.
I've done a week
you need 4 days is enough. 4 days. No, we ended up doing 2 weeks naively, you know. But we went to every club. We went to every big Pasha, Coup, Amnesia, all the big clubs that held 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, Space, everywhere. We went to everywhere, and I was like, I've had 7 years of selling tickets to the club next door. I went into Ibiza. I was like, this is unreal. Like, people are paying 50, 60, 70, 80 euros to get into a club. Where in England it was £3. You know, went to clubs in Ibiza. It was all about the experience. It was about the colour. It was about the music. It was about the vibe. It was about the community. It was about people dancing. It was about people getting off the.
The problem is they're not spending money on alcohol in there. That's the thing.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Obviously, everyone's having water and what have you. But the water was like €10 a pop back then, or pesetas. I think it might have been pesetas back then. But yeah, I just came back from there a different person, going, my God, if I can amalgamate what I've learnt out there and create something back in the UK, I'll be onto something. And that's where the journey started.
Interesting. What was it like that? So I've been to Ibiza in the last sort of like 10, 15 years, but
Yeah.
I think it's commercialized a lot now. But what was it like going back there?
Free.
Yeah.
Freedom, escapism, no rules, no red tape, no corporates. And I'm not against that, because business evolves. People will say, "Oh, it was better in my day." Of course, but business evolves. When you've got Space nightclub, where people go there on a Sunday and go round the clock, and or they go to Pasha back then, and then all of a sudden, I'm talking like early 90s now. 93 was the first time I went there. I've been going every year for the last 30 odd years. It has changed, but business changes. Things become commercial. Owners of nightclubs will go, "Hold on a minute, let's bring bottle service in. Let's bring VIP areas in. Let's bring minimum table spend £10,000 in." That was never there when we first started.
It's not what Ibiza's about, is it?
It's not what Ibiza's about, but it's turned into that. And what's happening is people are travelling all around the world to go to Ibiza. And, you'd go there. It's the most beautiful island in the world. And it's not just about clubs. There are so many beautiful cave restaurants. There's so much beautiful food. There's so many beautiful women out there. So many good-looking guys out there. So many people who speak different languages. It really is a wonderful, special place. But it has changed. And I went to Ibiza a couple of months back with the team here, and we went in, we did 10 people on the podcast, and just to hear their stories, the nostalgia, and find out how it has changed. And I've noticed it changed. I still love it, but I also understand when you're going to these restaurants, maybe choosing the wrong restaurant, and a steak is coming in at €85, and a small glass of lager might be coming in at €15, and then you're ordering broccoli on the side, and the broccoli is €22. It's like, what has this come to? But you've got to remember, people in Ibiza are earning their money 4 months of the year.
Yeah.
So they've got to really make their business work in that 4 months, and that's probably why they are double or triple wherever else is in the world. So I kind of get it, but you've got to have deep pockets there, or you will leave there with a lot of debt because you get carried away there.
And imagine it's the sort of place that like eats you up.
Well, you can get carried away if you haven't got the money to be there, and you end up getting excited there. Ibiza is the only place in the world where people cancel flights or move their flights the most.
Yeah. Bring it forward.
Bring it forward if you've got a fear, I guess. But normally the majority is extending, going,
Yeah.
This is not the real world. And when you get home, you have a massive crash. When you're back in the UK, you're like, that was just an unbelievable experience.
Did you ever? So you went out there.
Yeah.
And then that was your sort of inspiration to start the club promoting business.
Yeah.
Was there a part of you that wanted to stay out in Ibiza and do it out there?
There was when I was younger, and when I really got into the nightclub game in the UK, I had a 10-year period in my 20s when I really hit it hard, earning money and promoting and doing what we're doing, and also partying as well on the weekend when I didn't have nightclubs. I was in my 20s, so we did burn the candle at both ends. I was always inspired by Ibiza, but I always knew that the business model out there was quite tough. Being British out there and going out there, you had to do a season out there. I wasn't prepared to do a season. I like going out there for enjoying the holiday, but I did have one eye on Ibiza, going, I would like to go and hire that club and put 5,000 people in there and create the best party ever. Yeah.
Did you ever do that?
I never did that, no.
What's the biggest club event that you've done in the UK?
Club event. I hired Ministry of Sound in 2000.
Oh, did you? I would have been going then around that time.
Yeah, I had Ministry of 2000.
2010.
Yeah, that was a really good party. But the biggest club I'd done, I had a nightclub in Birmingham. I had 12 nightclubs every week when I was at peak, all around the country. And one of the nightclubs I had, and that was weekly nights, one of the nightclubs I had was in Birmingham, and it was 2,700 capacity. That's a big nightclub.
Yeah. And
it had a VIP, floating VIP, and the ceilings were so big, it had a floating VIP at the top, and when you go up there, it only held about 50 people, but it was see-through, so you could see the dance floor, and you're walking on. That's a weird feeling. But yeah, Birmingham was probably the biggest club.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and when did you go? So you were earning I mean, you're doing, how many nights a week were you doing?
At a peak, I had 12 nightclubs every week.
12 nightclubs a week. So you weren't working all of them, but
No,
by this time you'd actually expanded out. Got a team, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I had a team. It was me, my mobile phone, my best mate, and we had teams of people in every city promoting, flyering, making sure everyone's getting flyers under their doors, in halls of residents of the universities, making sure everyone's getting flyer to hands outside nightclubs, making sure it's fly posted the whole of the city around all the lampposts in all the areas it shouldn't be. You know, we were really we were quite ruthless back then in our 20s, in terms of the more people we got in our nightclub, the more money we earned, and we had to do what we had to do. You end up going to nightclubs that are closed. That was our business model. Now, all the super clubs, you remember in like from 98 to 2008, they created these super clubs where it was all about the biggest clubs. Luminar had like, don't quote me, like 100 clubs, and all the clubs were massive. But you might go to a city and that club might be closed on a Wednesday, because nightclubs aren't open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. Back then they would be open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So there was opportunities for a Wednesday or a Monday. So I'd go to a club on a Monday and Wednesday and say, look, you're closed. I'm going to pack up your club each week. I'll take the door money and you take the bar money. And that was the business model.
And so there was no risk aside from you weren't paying them to rent the venue.
No. The best deals were get them free. The best deals were, look, we want your nightclub for free. You pay for all the security. You pay for all the bar staff. We're packing 2,000 students every week. We'll take the door money at £3 a pop, and you take all the bar money.
Interesting.
And then what happened is some clubs were more clued up than others and said, no, we want a hire fee of £500. So we give them £500. Yeah.
And then when did you started building the business, you're doing all these events every week, but then what was the point at which you decided, I'm going to launch a festival?
Yeah. In 2008, I was 10 years in. So I was, 10 years into doing the nightclubs. And I thought I was going to be doing it for years and years and years, but I've always had a really good gut feeling about business, and what feels like I've been 5 moves ahead, and I get a feeling before maybe others get a feeling about stuff in business. Again, that's coming down from being a 10-year-old and seeing everything, like I learnt my trade there. When we talk about entrepreneurship, I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 10. I've learnt my trade there. I've never had a job, never worked for anyone. So when people are now jumping into entrepreneurship now, I feel for them, because they don't realise how hard entrepreneurship is, how hard creating a brand is or building a business. It was 2008 the idea came about. I was well into my sport, rugby. I'm a big West Ham fan, but rugby was my sport that I played. Did quite well at that sport. And then really in 2008, I thought about creating an idea of creating a sport and music festival and give up the nightclub world, because I saw the nightclub world taking a bit of a nosedive.
Okay.
Because of the smoking ban and because of late licensing, bars were open now. At the same time, nightclubs were open. It started eating away at lots of stuff. So that's when the idea came around, 2008.
And then that was okay. So you can see you got to make a pivot at this point, away from the nightclub game.
Yeah.
But then that's a big jump to go from doing 12 nightclubs a week to doing a festival. And when you spoke about earlier on that Ibiza makes its money in 3 or 4 months a year, you're talking about making money in 3 or 4 nights a year.
Yeah.
That's a big risk.
That's a huge risk. Yeah, 3 days a year we earn all our money. That's a wild risk.
Yeah.
I got invited by the chairman of a football club, Bournemouth Football Club, maybe a couple of years ago, and he got up and spoke. A real good room of people in there, loads of different faces and different sports people in there. And he got up and spoke. He said, you wouldn't believe our business model. We earn all our money in just 20 days of the year. And everyone was like, oh, I haven't thought about it like that. And then someone got up and said, Dodge, what about you? I said, we all our money in 3 days of the year. And that is wild, So, yeah, it's a really risky business, festivals.
And then what, take me back to then the decision to actually do it. So did you know what you were doing when you launched that first festival?
I didn't have a clue. I knew how to promote, because I'd done it for 10 years. I knew how to flyer and poster and market. I had hundreds of DJs on my books, and I knew how to throw a really good party. I knew that. What I didn't know was going from a nightclub world where you're going to a venue where everything's just sat there. The staff are there, the security there, the toilets are there, the DJ box is there. Like everything's there for you. When you go into a field, I was hiring 67 acres of land, and you had to turn that into a mini town. And I didn't understand having to deal with the local council, the police, licensing, the airport, because it's right next to the airport, dealing with marquee companies, dealing with flooring companies, Wi-Fi, tills, like everything. You had to start from scratch, and it was really, really overwhelming, because once you're in and you sign that contract with the venue, you are in. You know. So
How much are you in? How much did it cost to hire the venue?
back then, I think it was about 10 grand.
Okay.
And that was a lot of money in 2008. But it wasn't just the venue. It was paying for everything up front, which I didn't realise. I thought I was going to pay for everything post-festival. And that was the shock.
Is that naivety?
Naivety, but that's a superpower.
Yeah, that's... I mean, like my brother spoke about naivety is the thing that got him through the first couple of years of his business. But what are you doing? You're just figuring it out as you're going along every day.
Yeah.
Every day, new challenge.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that?
Love it. Love it. I love the buzz. I love the chaos. You know, I'm a seasoned pro in entrepreneurship, and I'm seasoned pro in creating brands and businesses. And I know what I'm letting myself in for, even with the podcast, which we launched 4 years ago. Even with the new company, the online events course, which we launched 4 years ago, I knew the chaos was going to be there. That first 3 years is chaos, because you don't know what you're doing. You know, I didn't have a mentor anywhere to say, oh, this is how you do it. This is what you do. You just work it all out. But to be a success in business, you have to be obsessed. You have to be obsessed. And I speak about this all the time, being obsessed with your business, getting up in the morning, excited to get into the studio, excited to carry on tweaking and creating your business, excited to get that first sale in. You know, without sales, you don't have a business. Without marketing, you're going to be lost. You know, if you've got a combination, you know how to promote, which is marketing, and you know how to sell, you'll earn money all your life. If you don't know how to market and you don't know how to sell, you're gonna be in trouble unless you work for someone.
How excited are you now? Because you've got the Bournemouth Sevens Festival is coming up in probably like 2 months.
Yeah.
Now, is it? How excited are you feeling now about that?
Yeah, it's coming into year 18.
Wow.
You know, it's grown from an acorn into a bit of a beast. It's now 30,000 people and 450 competing teams in rugby, netball, dodgeball, CrossFit games, hockey, basketball. Yeah, so it's a multi-sports festival with a massive influx of party people as well.
Why is football not on there?
I actually introduced this year ladies football.
Okay.
We introduced women's football, and it's gone down an absolute treat.
And people are going to be playing, people are going to be supporting.
Yeah, people can come along. We've got 3 beautiful Astros. We got, in total, there's probably £6 million worth of Astros.
But you designed for the, or is it like a
No, it's already
fixed
there.
venue?
It's basically, we hire a venue, which is Bournemouth Sports Club.
Yeah.
67 acres of land, 10 rugby pitches, 10 football pitches, 3 Astros, a festival arena. It's perfect for us. But we've adapted our festival around the site, and it works. It works an absolute treat. And we're coming into year 18. You know, that young kid, you've got to treat a business like a baby, like a teenager, and then like an adult. And, you know, you've got to protect it every way you can, because in business, doesn't matter how nice you are or whatever, people will always want a piece of your business. People will always people will kick me, people will dent me, people will come after you, people will try to eat away, but I'll never be beaten. You know, I'll never be beaten, because I live and breathe what I do. I'm obsessed, and I love events. I love festivals. I love sport. I love business. I love entrepreneurship. There's lots of stuff that I'm rubbish at, Jay.
Like what?
I'm never involved in any of my buffs. I've created 5 businesses over the last 27 years, and I'm not involved in the operations of the business.
Okay.
I like to create the idea of the business. I like to create the design, the feel. I like to reverse engineer it, what it's going to look like when it's at its best, and then what hoops I've got to jump through to get there, to make it the most amazing experience for someone walking through those doors of the festival. Or if I was creating the sportswear brand, which we built and sold, it had to be the best. It had to have the best materials. It had to have the best website. It had to have the best design. you know, and had to have the best customer experience. That's what I'm good at. And one of my strengths is hiring people and creating a real good team around me to make me look better than I actually am. But operational side of things is not my bag. You know, I've run all these businesses without sending any emails. I don't do email.
Yeah.
Everything I do is on the end of the phone. Everything I do is face to
Are you
face.
still picking up the phone to people as well?
I don't go chasing people for anything, but I'm on the end of the phone to help people. I'm on the end of the phone if I want to open up a door. And when you create cool stuff in business, people want to know who you are. So I never go to networking events. I've never handed out a business card. I've never owned any of that stuff. Never done any of that. People will find you if you're creating cool stuff, you know, and you're a man of your word.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't gone through 3 decades of business plus without doing a handshake with someone, and that's a deal for me. Look at them in the eye. Do I need contracts? No, I'm happy to not have contracts. Do we have contracts? Yes, we do, because of it could come wrong somewhere. Then you've got your lawyers involved and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, I'm a man of my word. If I'm saying I'm going to do something, I'll do it. There's not many of the old school around. There's a few. I've got some good mates who are still the old school, still people I do business with. You know, Barry Hearn up at Matchroom Sport. There's lots of people I do business with and who are really good people and straight talking people. And they'll tell you no. You know, one of my strengths is saying no. That's another superpower. People are afraid to say the word no. You know, and there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can say no and be firm, that's not for me, but thank you for the opportunity. And if someone says no to you in business, you don't take no for an answer, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s. Don't take no for an answer. Just means not yet. Just means they're not ready.
So how do you follow up with that then? So if someone's out there listening and they are an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
and they have got the no,
yeah.
how do you get around that?
Stay on their case. Stay on their case in a nice way. Check in on them. Randomly call them. Randomly send them a WhatsApp. Not badgering them for that deal, but just staying on the radar. Just let you know I'm here. Don't forget about me. You know, when people do that with me, I don't forget about them. If people come to me and say, and I come in and say, come and have an opportunity that I'd like to employ, just stay on my radar. And when people stay on my radar, when the opportunity arises and the time's there and everything meets, bam, come in, you got the job.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll just fade away.
Yeah.
You know, and I employ people in a very different way to anyone, but it works. It works for us. I've employed hundreds of people over the years. And I build a real loyal team where people stay with you 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, 7 years. You know, that comes down to how you look after them, make them feel, and creating the right culture in the business.
I want to talk about this for a second because I listened to one of your episodes and I think Josh, is he now a director of Eventful Lives?
Yes. Josh is brilliant.
Yeah. But that's a lot of, you've empowered him, you've given him a lot of control of the business.
Yeah.
He's a young guy.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
We got introduced to each other via his sister. We got on a house on fire. He's a creative. He was 21 years old, hungry. Also a West Ham fan. Massively helps.
Yeah,
Straight away it helps. But these things do help. You know, we got on like a house on fire and he was super creative and he saw, I was 2 years into doing a podcast, but we only did it on Spotify and Apple. Never did it on socials and never did it on YouTube. And he was like, Dodge, you need to get on YouTube and you need to get on TikTok and you need to get on Insta and all these things. I was like, this could be a match made in heaven. And, you know, for him coming on board when YouTube was probably on, we're playing around with it, just uploading a few things, just seeing what happens. But we didn't really understand it from going from 4,000 subscribers to today we're on 170,000 subscribers with over 100 million views.
Wow.
You know, so we're a real good team. And he's a doer.
Yeah.
He don't muck around. He's a doer. He's a grafter. He'll be here at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night because he loves it. And I love it.
So what he's got is what you wake up with every day, which is that passion for the business.
Yeah.
You wake up excited about it.
Yes.
And he feels excited about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Our business.
Out your business.
You know, he's a managing director. He's a shareholder. And that's what I like to do. I like to empower people. You know, I don't care if you're 21. I don't care if you're 25. I don't care what age you're at. If you're good enough, you're coming on board and you'll grow with us. It's really that simple. There's no hierarchy. I'm not here sitting in sort of my own room and demanding. And that's just not the way I work. I'm just on WhatsApp. We're bouncing ideas. Come up with the idea. Let's go for it. You know,
how much are you involved in the ideas generation for it? Because you said earlier on that you wake up, you want to be the you're not very good at the operational side of
No.
things. What you're good at
Ideas.
is the ideas and thinking, strategy, and those things.
Yeah.
Then you delegate that out.
Yeah.
But do you, for example, using Josh as the example, do you want him to bring ideas to you?
100%, all of them. And Dylan's the number 2 in the business. He's constantly coming up with ideas. He's bounced. Prime example this morning, like he pings me something, said, "Have you thought about doing an advert on the Eventful Lives podcast to talk about your other business, Event Crowd? You should be doing." I was like, genius, thank you, mate. Like people, we empower people, give them self-belief. You know, anyone who's come on board here, within 3 months there will be a different person. You know, they're working alongside an entrepreneur who gives them freedom to be creative, gives them freedom to allow them to make mistakes. It gives them freedom to be an intrapreneur within the business, but there's no financial risk for them.
But that's the thing though. Not every entrepreneur is looking to, particularly with someone so young, bring them into the business and empower them in that way, give them shares in the business.
Yeah.
Why did you do that differently?
Because it makes people feel part of what the journey we're on. But you have to earn that. You don't just get given it. You have to show me that you are super passionate. You've got to show me that you're bang on board. You show me this is a long career for you. You know, when we set up the media business, Eventful Lives Media, you know, this is the way forward. You know, I was the pioneer of the student nights, throwing 1,500 student nights across the UK. No one was doing it. And then people started following. Then we're the pioneer of a sport and music festival. And now we're going into a different world, a media world. But you have to keep... You know, for me, I have to be excited. You know, if I'm not excited about something, I won't do it. I can't do it. I physically can't do it. I've never done anything that I think, oh, I don't want to do that.
Have you had a business where you've not been excited about it and you decided now I'm going to, because you said the clothing business.
Yeah.
You're no longer part of that, right?
Yeah, sold that in 2018.
It was for that reason that you weren't excited about it anymore.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Because my strengths are coming up with an idea, finding a niche in the market, a gap in the market, seeing what someone's doing and making it better. So basically back then in 2010, there were sportswear brands doing bespoke kit. No one was doing that before. So you would go to a university and they'd give you $100,000 order, bespoke kits. You'd have it in there. You know, everyone would have the tracksuits, the hoodies, shorts, shirt, socks, bag, etc. All bespoke. I saw a gap in the market. I was like, where are they doing it? They're doing it in China. How long does it take to come from China across the water to land in the UK, then to go through customs, all the ball ache of that? How long does that take from door to door? So if you're a club or a university ordering that, you order it. You've then got to wait 3 months for your order. I was like, it's got to be something better than this. It's got to be something quicker than this. So I spent months looking for factories in Turkey, India, Pakistan. And I was thinking, I need to get home closer. You know, India and Pakistan were doing it quicker than that, but it was 10 weeks. I was thinking, I need to get quicker than this. So I found a factory in Lithuania.
How did you find that factory?
Hunting, sniffing, doing my homework on the internet, finding out who's who, using my contacts, who's doing what. So I found this factory in Lithuania. They could do it in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Landed on your door. 4 weeks. I was like, hallelujah. Right, I'm onto something here. And then we created the brand. It's called Viper 10. And I also knew that I used to design my own Nike trainers on Nike ID.
I remember this.
Colours,
yeah, of course.
All your colours, you could design your trainers. I was like, right, I need to find someone really clever. What if I did that for kit? So people go online. So I got this real clever kid friend of mine to design like Nike ID, but for kit.
Yeah.
So people were going on having all these hits on our website and people designing their own kit. If they wanted to press and say how much it was for all of that, they had to press a button, leave their name, email, mobile, press the button, they'll get their price. Then we'd have the name, email, boom, get them over the line. And that's what we did. And we built that up and I made an offer I couldn't refuse. Someone called me up one day on a Sunday night.
Out of the blue?
Out the blue, totally out the blue, random number. And I said, Flo, I'm going to bed. My wife, this rung, I let it ring for like 8 or 9 rings. Think, oh, can I be bothered Sunday? I actually took it and it was someone saying, is that Dodge? Yep. My name is such and such from this company. I've been watching you for 3 years. I love your brand. We want to buy you. I was like, are you sure, mate? I thought it was my best mate around, you know, like, yeah, no way.
Little prank call.
And I said, do me a favour, let's speak. It sounds great. Let's speak. Anyway, cut a long story short, cut a deal. He made an offer. I said, if you're prepared to make the offer, we won't change that. Shake my hand. And we shook hands. And it took 8 months and we sold the company.
Cash?
Yep. 100% no earnout. So I didn't have to be involved in the company.
You literally just
I
hand
was
it
like,
over.
boom, hand it over with my team. And away I went.
What was it about that business that was valuable? Was it like the database of the customers? Was it the brand that you created? Do you know what it was?
Well, anything in business that I put a high value on, Jay, is creating IP, intellectual property, and that could be a website, that could be the brand, that could be the social media, that could be the clever design of what we had within the website, of being able to create your own designs. It was, I guess, my reputation behind it. At that time, I had Lewis Moody,
Yeah.
England Rugby
Yeah.
at the time. He was with Nike. He was our front man for rugby. We had Pamela Cookie, who was the front woman, who was the England captain at the time for netball. I had a fantastic girl who worked for me called Steph Essex, who then became a shareholder at a very young age.
So another example where you've done this.
Another example, yeah. So you give them the freedom to run with the business. And I'd done my bit. I couldn't take it any further. I'd done my bit. I wasn't excited by sportswear. I was excited by sportswear because I used to wear sportswear. I used to sell. Another business I was earning in my younger years was selling Schneider clothes back then. But as you do to earn money in your teenagers. But then I end up all of a sudden I've got a sportswear brand selling clothes. So whatever you learn as a kid, when I look back now, I think, okay, I was selling tickets at 10. I'm still doing that at the age I am now. I was selling all the clothes then. I created my own clothing brand. You know, there's a thing going on here, you know. But I get bored quite easily. And the day-to-day of running that business, I wasn't involved in. Was I excited by the figures and numbers and everything? No. Had I done my bit? Yes. Is it the right time to sell? Yes. And we got out.
What's the biggest risk you've taken in your entrepreneurial journey?
The biggest risk, 100%, is launching a sport and music festival and gambling your family house on it.
Your family house. Talk to me about that.
That was 2008. There was
financial crisis.
Financial crisis.
Property prices are also collapsing.
Yeah,
I think,
everything was collapsing. Everything was collapsing. But I saw it as a huge opportunity in my weird thinking. I did that in 2001 when I launched the other business. Did it in 2008 when I launched this business. And we also launched a sportswear brand at the same time as well. So, yeah, run out of money. My naivety again, basically, Jay, was I thought it was going to cost $100,000 to put on this sport and music festival. And that was in the May of 2008. It got to January and all the contractors wanted money up front, big deposits.
And when are you expecting money to come in?
The day after the festival.
So you're not doing pre-sale at this point?
Well, no one would buy tickets.
Yeah.
No one would buy tickets because no one would use the internet to put their credit card details in 2008 because everyone had the fear that people were going to take money out of accounts and no one would buy online. So it was all cash. It was a serious gamble. And then I run out of money in January. We're £100,000 in, and there was nowhere to go to get any more money apart from the last option was to remortgage your family house, which is not a cool thing to do, mate. I've got to say, it's not something I look back on, and I look back on with pride that we nailed it. But it's something that I wouldn't look back on and go or advise anyone today to go and do that, especially when there was no social media. It was all flyers and posters. You're waiting on the day for people to turn up, you know, and the first festival ended up costing £300,000.
Okay. So you're £200,000 short.
£200,000 short. In total, we'd invested £300,000, which I didn't know how much it was going to cost.
A bit different from the nightclub days.
Yeah, well, the nightclubs days was quick. It was quick. You promoted hard, you got rewarded very quickly.
Yeah.
You promoted hard, you got rewarded very quickly. Here was a different beast. You had to have health and safety, you had to have insurance, you had to have licensing, you had to have all your bar staff, you had to have bring in all the toilets, you had to bring all the different marquees in, you were dealing with sponsors, you were dealing with the breweries bringing the alcohol in, you're dealing with people camping, you were all of these things. And also what I didn't know, there was no business model to say how much you're going to earn at the end of it. So the risk was outrageously big with no staff running it apart from myself, my wife who left her job at JP Morgan to come and do this. It was crazy.
So you had this was your primary income at this point. It was you were banking on this working.
Yeah.
What did she say? when you said to her, like, we've got to remortgage the house.
She's not a risk taker, Jay. She's one of the kindest souls on the planet. Not a bad bone in her body. From the countryside in Wales. Loves animals, loves green grass, loves long walks. And then we both met at Loughborough University, and all of a sudden she's getting married to a promoter who loves risk and everything else. What about, like, we're both polar opposite, you know, and but that works. That works, you know. If we were both the same, it probably wouldn't work. Being polar opposites has made this business model work for the last 18 years. But having that sit down with your wife to say, we're either going to lose that 100 grand, which we didn't have to lose at that time, or we have to remortgage the house and go for it. And that's a real tough call to have your fiance. It really is.
What did she say?
She said, do you really think this is going to work? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't. In my back of my head, I didn't know if it was
really?
going to.
So
Yeah,
you were just like...
I didn't know it was going to work or not. But who knows? Because it's a numbers game. How many people turn up on the day? It's a numbers game. How much they're going to drink on the bar? It's a numbers game. How much your security is going to cost? It's a numbers game. How many toilets you're going to bring? It's a number. I didn't know. Security would say to me, how much security do you need? I was like, I don't know. They're like, why do you not know? I said, well, I don't know how many people are going to turn up on the day. How many toilets do you need? The toilet company, I don't know. How many showers do you need for the campsite? I don't know. Everything was, I don't know. The caterers who are paying money to be there. How many people are going to be there so we can pay you to be there? I don't know. It was all the unknown. All the unknown until you wake up. You build the festival site. You wake up in the day. You pull your curtains back at 6 o'clock in the morning, praying that the sun's going to be out. That people are going to go, I'm going to turn up.
Wow. How many people turned up?
We had roughly 4,000 people turn up.
Okay.
And after tallying it all up post-festival, when you're bringing all the cash back in from all the tills, we made £1,000 profit that year.
And the whole thing.
On the whole thing.
Including the money that you'd borrowed against the house.
Yeah.
Did you pay that back?
You can't. You got to go again. Again, I didn't think about that. I was thinking, right, does that mean we can pay back? You've got to go again.
So the house is back on the line.
The house is back on the line for next year. It's nuts. This is one of the things I've taken a huge gamble. Another thing that I took a gamble on was crazy gamble. Was signing a 10-year contract with the venue with a personal guarantee on your house.
Whoa.
Yeah. I had it coming in from every angle. That was after year 3. I then signed a 10-year contract with a personal guarantee that if you did not do that within the 10 years, you have to pay that whole contract.
Wow.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, great. When I look back, I think, were you mad? But again, it's a big risk. But I knew I was locking that price in for 10 years. So I was thinking,
that's a good point.
I'm locking it in for 10 years because if you don't, any venue will see the work out and think, oh, it must be only that amount. Right, let's double his rent. Let's triple his rent. And I couldn't have that.
But you committed to 10 years.
I committed to 10 years, yeah, which at that time, I think the rent jumped up to 30 odd grand.
Okay.
So that's another 300 grand.
So like when I think about building the podcast, for example,
yeah.
I've got no time frame for how long it's going to last. It's sort of like going to go on until indefinitely. Did you think the same about Bournemouth Sevens, to be able to say, I'm willing to commit to a 10-year contract?
I had to. Because where else am I going to earn money? I was basically didn't want to be going to nightclubs anymore and travelling the country doing 30,000 miles a year, sleeping in hotels, taking the dorm money, driving back with the cash, coming back to London at the time before we moved down to Bournemouth. I didn't want to be doing that. I was kind of like done with it. You know, I was really done with it. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the road and then coming home. You know, remember when you're doing nightclubs, you're getting changed at 8 o'clock at night to go to work. It takes its toll. And all of a sudden, when I didn't have to do nightclubs, I was doing a festival, I'd be laying at home at 8 o'clock at night going, oh, I don't have to travel anywhere and I don't have to move anywhere and I can stay and relax. That was a beautiful feeling, the contrast, you know. What was the question?
10 years planning.
Yeah, you've just got, I was committed to 10 years. I was in. I've got to build this. I've got to tweak. Every year I've got to tweak and improve. Every year you tweak and improve. You say, okay, well, next year I'm going to add a VIP. And the following year that worked. I'm going to add another sport. Let's add dodgeball. My name's Dodge. I watched the movie. Let's add dodgeball. That put another 100 grand on the bottom line. I didn't know that was going to happen. All of a sudden, 90 odd teams entered to play this game called dodgeball. I got this massive inflatable from China brought over. That was the court. I had 2 courts of dodgeball. People loved it. It was fancy dressed. It was fun. There was no contact. Then I added hockey. Then we added netball. Then we added all these different sports. Then you start tweaking the prices entry. Then you start tweaking the prices of the bar. Then you start adding more entertainment. Then you start adding 100 DJs. And then you start adding different arenas. Then you start working out the way people walk around the festival site, that you want to keep it compact, that it looks packed and people are having fun and people are dancing on tables. And it became madness. You know, I was living and breathing this.
And these are all things that you don't think about when you sort of put that business plan together when you first start out.
I never had a business plan in my life. Never done one. Wouldn't know where to start. Just have it in my head.
This is how I want it to look.
Yeah.
Hire the people.
Yeah.
Delegate.
Yeah.
That's impressive. What advice would you give though so you've said this quite a few times, that you wouldn't recommend, for example, remortgaging the house and taking these big risks. But if there's someone out there today, and this podcast is sort of aimed at the ambitious mind, the people that either want to progress in their corporate careers, it wouldn't apply to you, but the entrepreneurial side would. Let's say there's someone out there who wants to start their own business. Now, you didn't build a business plan, so what would you advise them?
Start today. Start tonight. Start now. Start now. Do you really want to be working for a corporate until you're 60? Do you really want to be going to work, getting up in the morning, having a shower, getting changed, feeling I've got to go to work and there's 5 or 6 people I don't really like them, I don't really like my boss, but I've got a salary? Do you really want to be doing that for the rest of your life? Honestly, doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter if you work for a bank, doesn't work for a lawyer, doesn't matter. Okay, it's a job, but you'll be salaried up. You won't have freedom. You're told what to do. You're told what to wear. If you leave at 5 o'clock, people are staring at you. If you don't do extra hours, people are going, why is he not doing extra hours? He doesn't care, or she doesn't care. You're going to be trapped for life. And I've seen it firsthand, Jay. I've got friends of mine who are super talented sportsmen who are told by their parents, go and work for the big 5. Go and work for JP Morgan. Go and work for Barclays Bank. Well, they're now in their 40s, still stuck there, regretting that they didn't start their own business or didn't start something for them. Because there's not a better feeling than growing something for you, growing a business, even if it's on the side. If you're out there working in a corporate company, start thinking about creating something yourself, because the world is changing very quickly. Yeah. AI is going to be taking over the world very quickly, 1,000,000 times faster than the Industrial Revolution, where there was 100 people working on a farm and all of a sudden a tractor come along and that tractor could do the same work as 100 people. This is working faster than that. And if you're not up to speed with AI, or at least understanding AI and being the person who can control AI, you're going to get left behind. There's going to be no more accountants. There's going to be no more lawyers. It's all going to be done by AI for free.
Yeah, I know some lawyers, and like the paralegal industry, for example. I mean, what it would take someone to read all of these papers and textbooks and all that sort of stuff can be done in seconds now. Yep. It would have been weeks before.
Yeah. You think you're a black cabbie?
Yeah.
You had to train 3 years. 3 years on a scooter, understanding every street and everything. All of a sudden, you get a man come in from another country. He can now press a button to take people exactly the routes they need to go. That's on a smaller scale. But going back to your point there, anyone who's thinking about starting a business, I would start today. If you're in a business and a corporate, build something on the side now. Go and get the website. Go and look at the social handles. Go and set something up. Go and start developing something. Come home and be excited. Don't come home just sit Netflix and have your dinner and go to bed and then dread on a Sunday night you've got to go back to work and you're, oh my God, I've got to deal with that boss. I don't like him. Doesn't matter. Gone are the days when people would leave university with a degree and go and get a job and feel like they're safe. No one's safe at the moment. No one's safe in a job.
And also that job, you can dedicate 20 years of your life to one firm.
Yep.
They'll cut you off.
Yep.
One day you're there, the next minute you're not.
And do they care about you? No, of course they don't. Stop believing your boss cares about you. Your boss wants you to work hard so he gets his bonuses. It's as simple as that, and gives you a little tiny bonus. You have to be doing something you absolutely love, like this. You're doing something you love. Well, I guess you love it.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, you're 50 episodes in. So massive respect to you on that, by the way. But you're doing something you love. How do you turn this into a business? Anyone out there? What were you good at as a kid? What did you enjoy doing as a kid?
That's what we forget.
Yeah. We're just like at the moment, like we're all kids. I'm still a big kid. We're all kids. But when you work for a corporate, you've got to pretend to be an adult. When you're an entrepreneur, your own business, you haven't got to pretend to be anyone. You can just be you, and that's why I guess on LinkedIn, people like my stuff because no one's telling me what to say or not to say. I'm just being me. And
you're very honest as well.
Yeah.
And there's no one at all that's there's no compliance department that's governing what you can say and what you can't post. And you're just raw, like you're just you, and the way you're feeling about things comes out. And no one else to answer to.
Be real. Why would you not be real? Why do people want to put on a front that they're a businessman or they work for a corporate and corporate life is really good because they give us 22 days a year? Like, fucking come on, guys. It was only a few years ago, like you were loving life as a teenager, loving life at university, and then you've gone all serious all of a sudden. For what? For a job. For a job.
How many, you said there about like sort of you get your 22 days holiday a year. How many holidays do you have a year?
I go on holiday every 6 weeks. And that's my thing.
Yeah.
I'm not into sports cars with silly coloured. I'm not into watches. I'm into having long lunches with my friends.
Yeah.
A tight family. And the thing I spend my money on, which I love, is my holidays.
But you've bought that freedom.
I've always built that freedom. I've always had freedom. There's never a time I haven't had freedom. Even at school I had freedom. Because sport, you'd always be like on the sports field, freedom. In the classroom I found it hard. Or you get kicked out of the classroom, and, whatever it may be. I've just had freedom. And freedom's the key. Like, people talk about money as if it's the be all and end all, and it really does bloody help. Honestly, it really does help. It really does help. But it's a tool. Money's a tool. What you're after really is freedom. And if you're in a job that you haven't got freedom or something you don't enjoy doing, your life's going to pass you very quickly. I've got friends who are in their 50s and they were earning more money in their 20s when they finished at uni because they went into a corporate job. They've been stuck with these handcuffs. And they're no better off now than they were after leaving uni because they've got a family, they got a car on tick, which is £1,000, they got the kids' schooling, whatever it is, they've got no fun money at the end of the month. And they're sitting there going, why did I not make that move when I was 28? Why did I got approached by someone when I was 33 to come and join this company? Why did I not go and do that? Do we really want to be at like 70 or 75 and 80, looking back going, I wish I did that. Shit, I should have done that. Fuck my life. I only got the average age is 78. I've only got 8 years there. Why did I not do that? We got one life, Jay. When people put that in perspective, you got one life. I think it wakes people up a bit. When you put it in perspective, the average man or woman lives for 29,000 days or 4,000 weeks. When you put that on a piece of paper, see where you are on that chart. The average age is 38. People think, oh, your average age is 45, 50. That's your average, isn't it? Your average age is 38. And I really try to put it in a way to people that just to wake them up a bit.
I heard something on a podcast recently. The guy said along the lines of, do today what the person that your version of you at the end of the year will look back on and say thank you.
Yeah. Or imagine someone filming you constantly to write a movie about your life. This is part of your life, what you're doing now, Jay. You in the corporate world?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Wealth management.
Okay.
And I love what I do, which is fantastic.
Amazing. If you love what you do and you genuinely love what you do, amazing. But part of your life story at the moment, if someone was filming your life when you look back with, you've got your son sitting on your knee, it might be a 10-year-old or whatever, and you look back and go, yeah, I took a bit of a pivot there. I went and did this thing called a podcast. Didn't know what podcast was, but I went and did this podcast thing, and I ended up having 50 conversations in the first year with some real credible, nice people. And I ended up building up relationships with these people, because one thing that no one tells you about podcasting, Jay, is that I've done 280 plus episodes now. You build this most extraordinary relationship with people who've come on your podcast.
Yeah.
Because they've told you their life. They've entrusted you. And when you stay in contact with these people, that's more contacts. Again, as a kid, everyone you meet, I was taught, everyone you meet is a contact. And I've carried all these contacts through my life. Pound a man. Everyone you meet's a contact. You know, my parents gave me self-belief as a young kid. Believe in yourself. If you feel like you can go and do it, give it a go. What's going to happen if you don't? Keep tweaking until you succeed.
But the whole time, and like you are absolutely right about the podcast, and it's growing my network.
Yeah.
And who am I sitting down in front of people? I'm sitting down in front of people that are successful in their corporate careers or entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Who are my clients in the wealth management game? Those are the people.
Brilliant.
So, and this is something that's completely sustainable, I believe. I love my career. I can build something on the sides, and it creates an ecosystem.
Perfect.
Where it can all come together.
As long as you can earn from what you're doing. In terms, I don't mean earn like YouTube and all that sort of stuff. That's great. You'll get to that point where you'll go, okay, well, this is bringing some money, happy days. But as long as you're earning with the context you're meeting and doing deals with these people, because one, you'll get a huge amount of trust being a podcast host, because you can't hide. You can't hide being a podcast, and the people on the podcast who speak, and they can't hide. Nothing gets edited, you know, so you're going to build a lot of trust, and people are going to have a lot of trust in you to do deals in your wealth management, to believe in you're the person to go to, you know. And the moment I met you, straight away, you just had trust written all over you.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we're here today. What year was that we went to Paris?
2023. Was November?
Yeah.
October, November?
Yeah.
It's the Rugby World Cup, wasn't it?
That's right. 2 semi-finals.
Yeah. And likewise as well, like I met you and you were just very genuine, very authentic. And then I followed up with you and you just said, look, you know, I'll help you out. If you've got any questions, just drop me a message.
Yep.
And I appreciate that so much.
No, that's what I love doing.
And it speaks volumes about you as a person.
Thank you.
And that's one thing I would say about you as well, is that I think that the common theme across all of your businesses that you've created is that you are an action taker and a doer. And I think that that's probably your superpower. It's like the marketing side of things. And I'm going to reference your episode with James Sinclair for a second, because that was a fantastic episode.
Good one. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I've listened to it and watched it probably like 3 or 4 times now. He is an amazing businessman.
Yeah.
And he created something what he called the 8 traits of the greats. And he went through those with you. And he was like, you might be the most complete entrepreneur that he's met.
Yeah, I remember. That was a huge compliment from James, in fact. I really like James Sinclair. I like him as a human being. I like him as an entrepreneur. I like him as a businessman. And he is straight talking and real as you get.
Yeah.
So when he invited me onto his podcast, I was like, this is going to be a great conversation. I don't know where it's going to go. But we had an absolute cracker of a conversation. And I don't do many podcasts. I've been on a few. I want to do a few more this year. But that one is, everyone always triggers me going, oh my God, you and James Sinclair, you were just bouncing off each other. It was great to hear 2 British entrepreneurs just bouncing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, what the business that he's created,
Yeah.
from literally being a party man,
Yep.
probably dressed in a clown outfit at one point, wasn't he? And then to then build the businesses he has now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an amazing episode. And I listen to that regularly to try and get ideas about what I should be doing and to try to get inspiration. And
there's loads of the messages that come, I get inundated with those messages from that, but everyone's like, there is so many golden nuggets and everything you guys were saying. Nothing was planned. It's just, I can only talk about my career, or when someone's asking me a question, you could ask me anything you want. I can only go, vroom. I don't know whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether someone listens and goes, oh, thank you for that bit of information, or it's not useful to anyone. I can only say what I've done and what I've achieved. You know, and there's been lots and lots of, this isn't like plain sailing, Jay. This has been, I am non-stop. My wife's like, how does your brain work? How does it work so fast? Why is it constantly switched on? The only time my brain switches off is 2 times, really. One, when I'm having a long lunch and there's vino involved and you're having a laugh and complete switch off. And the other time is when I'm sleeping. Other than that, that's the moment I wake up, ping, 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 ping. You know, when you're running 3 companies and you're dealing with lots of things that could go wrong, you know, since 2020, there's lots of firefighting. You know, everyone's been firefighting.
Particularly in the event space.
Particularly in the festival world, event space, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, all the stuff that people take for granted in the UK. You know, this is British culture, Jay.
Mm.
You know, I am absolutely devastated to see the way our British culture is going. We all grew up in pubs. We all grew up in nightclubs.
The country's built on pubs.
Pubs, nightclubs, independent restaurants, they're all closing down.
Yeah.
They're all closing down. You think about it, even if you're a bank, if you're an 82-year-old man or woman going to the bank, that's your moment in the week when you can have a chat with the woman or guy behind the counter. That's been taken away. Bingo halls. We may laugh at bingo halls. That's a community of 60 to 90-year-olds going there religiously every single day. All closed down. Our communities in the UK are just closing down. It's really sad. And the pandemic's done that. And it's had a huge knock-on effect of people's mind health.
Yeah. What is it about that period in the pandemic that did that?
Well, no one could go out. Number one, no one could go out. You were told to wear a mask, stay at home and stay in the garden and whack pots and pans for the NHS Thursday, which was amazing. And, you know, I've got fond memories of that time. I've got real fond memories. One, it slowed me down. Two, it made me reflect on the past because I was always like, what's next, what's next, what's next? Three, you bond with your family even more, and you really take things like what are really important in your life. You know, that's what it kind of slowed people down with. Allowed people to train, it allowed people to play golf, it allowed people to get fit, allowed people to cycle. All these things that you could do and actually go, everything else can stop. But it was a false economy. It was really false because the government were paying your staff, the government were paying you, the government were paying this. And I was sitting there thinking, this is too good to be true. You know, I've been in some big things before where the Twin Towers in 2001 or the big recession in 2008. Then we had this pandemic. It allowed me to bring my entrepreneurial spirit, take it to another level, to create new businesses because I knew I had to create a business that was pandemic proof. What does a pandemic mean? What does COVID mean? What does Corona mean?
Furlough wasn't.
What does furlough mean? None of them were.
No.
I never clue what any of them were. Didn't have a Scooby what any of them were. None of us did. But what I did know, now it's time to start creating something that's pandemic proof. And that's why we created 2 new businesses. And now we're into year 4 of both businesses. The media company, Eventful Lives Media, and the online events course, which are both working really well right now. But we're in a very different time at the moment. Really, really different. You got to remember there was 1,500 nightclubs pre-pandemic. We're down to less than 400 right now.
Wow.
Pubs are closing down one every single day. Restaurants, this year, restaurants have fallen off a cliff.
Wow.
All the independents can't afford to open their doors. The bills are too high.
And the problem is, like, I had this conversation with a local cafe owner to where I live, independent. She's had to close down. And I said, like, why? Like, I've been coming to you since she was open before the pandemic. She stayed open during the pandemic. She pivoted her business and she brought all of the groceries and stuff into the house so she could stay open as a convenience store. And now, 2024 it was, she had to shut down.
Yep.
Because vape shops
Yep.
and those sorts of businesses are offering landlords more money. Now, I mean, there's a lot of these popping up.
Yeah.
Now, they can't all be profitable.
Mm.
So how the hell can they afford to pay for the rent to get an independent coffee shop or independent restaurant out?
Yeah. Well, you got to remember that you got to remember that 70% of businesses don't make any money. Pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, government won't talk about this. Lay you money, 90% plus independent businesses will not be making a pound note right now.
It's what the government don't understand about entrepreneurship as well.
The government are clueless. The government are clueless when it comes to business. I'm not into politics. But what I do know is business, and what I do know is entrepreneurship, and what I do know is how to make money, and what I do know is knowing how businesses are doing. I can have a conversation with 100 businesses and I'll know whether they're successful or not successful. It's really difficult to earn money when you're getting charged turnover taxes. You know, if you're an entrepreneur, as soon as you get over the threshold of 90 grand, you've got to start paying VAT, 20%. You know, now at the moment, if you make £100,000 net profit as a business, you are doing really, really well. You know, there's a massive misconception out there. You've got to be earning £1 million a year. You've got to have all the fast cars. You've got to be flying into Dubai. There's an aeroplane behind you, which is a private jet that you... It's all bollocks.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. I don't mean to swear on your podcast, but it really is. It really is. And social media has taken it to that level. And there's lots of people out there who are fake entrepreneurs, earning money out of naive entrepreneurs wanting for them to have that lifestyle.
But it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
And what you've created are sustainable businesses.
Well, they're real.
Yeah.
They're real business. But going back to the high street, coffee shops struggling to make money, restaurants struggling to make money, ice cream shops, everyone, hairdressers. Like, it's really, really difficult. And one thing that no one spoke about is cash being taken out of the system. It was only a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, cash was there. Now there's no cash in the system. I mean cash.
Yeah,
like
physical cash.
Like physical cash you have in your pocket. I always walk around with cash in my pockets. I love cash. That's my thing. And every time I'm in an independent, I want to pay cash because they don't want to be having to be charged every time I tap. They get charged for that deal. And and
is that on the total transaction?
Yes.
Basically the revenue.
Yeah.
So that it would be like a 1%, 2% charge
Yeah.
the revenue of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why everyone's closing down. You go down the high street these days, it doesn't matter if you're in Bournemouth, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are, the high street is like we've been in a world war. We've been in war. Like, everything's boarded up. You only have hairdressers and vape shops. Even the big guns, even your M&S's, even your big House of Frasers and all they're all gone.
Yeah.
The high street it's really sad to see, and it doesn't help when Amazon are taking all the orders. And it really bugs me that all these big companies like Amazon and Meta aren't paying taxes in our country. Why are we allowed? They've got all this offshore stuff and no, you are mega. You could really help fund our country. Pay your taxes. Us entrepreneurs are paying 50% tax. People who go to work are working 4 or 5 months of the year, giving it to the government. But people who get a pay slip don't look at that. They go, "Oh, that's my pay slip. That's what I get. Okay."
So
but
this is a really interesting point that you've made here. As a business owner, you know what your profits are. You know how much national insurance you're paying. You know how much VAT you're paying. When we get money coming in, we see the net number that comes in. You earn $5,000 or whatever, and it's $3,000 that comes into your bank account. And that's all you see. So then you just live off of your net amount because the money's already been paid to HMRC.
Yeah.
But if you paid that at the end of the year instead, and if you knew how much you were paying, physically hand it over,
it'd frighten you.
People would have a different mentality towards.
Agree. And I'm constantly on about this, and that's why I was talking about people who've got jobs. You don't realise how much you're being taxed. You don't realise that you're going to work and you enjoy it, but going to work and not enjoying it. That's why if you set up your own business and your own limited company, you can go out and eat and put it on the business. You can fill your car up and put it on the business. There are lots of plus points, but there's a prime example which people don't know if they are in the corporate world listening to this is as a business owner, if I put Jay on $100,000 salary, I've got to pay the government £15,000 every year just to employ you.
Yeah.
Who invented that? Who? Where has that come from? Employers' national insurance.
And
number
employee.
one. And employees' national insurance. You then pay the government out of your salary.
Yeah.
It's appalling. It really is appalling. But what happens is that if you bring this up or someone talks about it, it goes, "Oh, that's just the way it is." I wouldn't run a business like that. The government are a business. We all pay those people in the government to make big decisions. And they're not making good decisions for us all.
If you had a magic wand, what would you do?
I would get 20 of us, proper entrepreneurs, and take over the business side of what the government are doing. Because they're employing people who have never run a business, have never employed anyone in their lives. They don't know what business owners are going through. And anyone out there, if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, I know what you're going through. I know that you're laying there at night stressing about money, paying the payroll at the end of the month. I know what you're going through, knowing at the next month, are you going to get customers in? Business is not easy, but business when the government don't want you to succeed is even harder.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that with this current government?
100%.
They don't want you to succeed.
They don't want you to succeed. Why, if they want you to succeed, why wouldn't they reduce the VAT for businesses? And everyone go, oh, it's gone from 20% VAT. We're the highest paid VAT in Europe. Oh, it's dropped it down to 10. Oh, there's 10% we can have now. That might make us profitable. That might make us break even. But the frustration here is what's happening here is that everyone's paying the taxes, but we're not getting nothing back for it from it. You know, it's like going to the supermarket and giving them over 100 quid and then giving you £7 worth of food. You're like, where's the rest? Where's the other £93, please? You know, and it's really, really frustrating, but what can I do? I can't do anything. So I just try to switch off from it.
Yeah.
Stay in my bubble. I don't watch the news. Stay in my bubble. Stay in my lane, and just try to crack on what we're doing.
Can you see yourself living in a different country?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really proud to be British. I'm really proud of our country. But I've seen our country change very, 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 very quickly. I used to see our country change every sort of 5-6 years. Roughly 5-6 years. I'm seeing our country change over the last 12 months, monthly, not for the good, and then weekly, not for the good. And people can sugarcoat what they see and what they don't see. And if you just watch the BBC, you're only being told what the BBC want to tell you. I went on Twitter. I don't like Twitter, by the way. I went on Twitter. My God. That's telling you what's going out on the streets. That's telling you the crime, what's happening. That's telling you all the stuff that you don't want to see. I spent a month on that just looking and watching. I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
Turn it off.
I've got to turn this thing off. I didn't tweet or anything. I was just watching all these videos happening at real time of what's going on in our streets. And if you don't go on our streets, where people aren't wanting to go on the streets now because they are dangerous, they're staying at home. So they're just oblivious to what's going on. I think it's... I'm a real optimist the whole of my life. But I can see why a lot of my friends have left the country.
Have they?
Yeah. Yep. A lot of
Where have they
businesses.
gone?
Gone to Dubai, gone to Cape Town, gone to Portugal. I can see why they've gone. I'm not going anywhere. But I can see why they've gone. I really can. Could I live in Dubai? But no, not full time.
You'd like a bit of Portugal though, wouldn't you?
I love a bit of Portugal. It's my go-to anyway. Yeah, but again, in Portugal in the winter months I also love England.
Yeah.
You know, I'm lucky to live in the countryside, so I'm away from everything. But I'm also grew up on the streets, so I know what the streets were like. I also know going on the streets now when I'm there and going to check out different towns and cities, I'm walking around like, my God, this has changed. It's got a vibe to it. People are walking around with trauma on their face. People don't have money, and if you haven't got money, you've got to do things to go and get money.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing so many people going into these supermarkets and just robbing £200-300 worth of food and alcohol and walking out. Because what are you going to do? The police going to do anything? No. You call the police, they're like, oh no, sorry, we can't go there. So there's no win here, you know. But
it's even hard. Like, I've got a good job.
Yeah.
Pays good money. But the issue that my generation now face is like...
How old are you, Jay?
34.
Okay.
So getting on the property ladder.
You do look like Gareth Southgate, by the way. I thought I was going to get that in there. A better looking version.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's without the waistcoat. Well, I've got a little cardigan today.
Looking good.
But getting on that property ladder, and I think that's also, like, for example, me and my girlfriend, she's got a great job as well. So collectively...
Give her a shout out.
Julia, she's amazing.
She's bang on the ball.
Yeah, she is.
She's in the football world.
She's commercial director at Chelsea Women's.
Chelsea, that's amazing.
She's proper on.
Big shout out, Julia.
Yeah, she's.
I met her in Paris as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, she knows Alex. And those guys. Yeah, that's why I was there.
Yeah, you're on a freebie. I was on a freebie with Alex. Yeah. Property ladder.
But getting on the property ladder, like the hurdles to get on there, the stamp duty's going up again in April, and what do we, if we're going to start a family? Well, you probably want not a 2-bedroom flat in London. You probably want something bigger. You might have to move outside the city. And all these questions you start to contemplate before you can make that decision about, growing a family and those things. But time's running out. And the problem is that then you start to look at the options that are like the Portugals or the Dubais, where you can go and earn money and keep a larger portion of your money. The lifestyle might be better. And I can see a lot of my generation now are looking overseas because a lot of things feel unachievable here. And if you want to start a family, my God, like crime, property market and those things, it just feel like friction and hurdles
Yeah.
to stop you from doing
Red
it.
tape everywhere.
Yeah.
Red tape everywhere. I feel. Do you own your own property?
I own a property.
Okay, well done. At least you're on the ladder.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult. I feel really sorry for the Gen Zs that up to the age of 24. I think I love Gen Zs. I employ a lot of them. I really love their minds, but they're a very different mind to the next ones, millennials and Gen X. They've got lots of talent, but they've been brought up in a world at the moment where it's just all social media and all doom and gloom from the pandemic. It's like, wow, how are their minds going to be? They're all glued to their phones.
But their minds are not good.
No.
The data says it as well.
Yeah.
Like so many people are in therapy and suffering from depression in that cohort of people, the Gen Z.
I think it's really difficult to get on the property ladder because when we were growing up, I think it was 3 times your salary.
It's like 10.
Now it's like 9, 10 times. Impossible. And the way to earn money, and I know some influencers don't believe that you should get on the property ladder. I think you should get on the property ladder as soon as you possibly can. Because once you're on the ladder, it's hard to get off the ladder.
Yeah, which is what I did.
Yeah, once you're in.
25, I think.
Yeah, I find it, it's, I don't know what the answers are. I don't know what the answers are for a lot of the generation from adult generation from 18 to 30. I think there's a lot of lost people out there. The government aren't at the moment talking about the huge unemployment rate. I'm seeing people get unemployed left, right and centre.
Really?
Do the government talk about it? No. Why? 'Cause it's not the narrative. You know, what are people going to do? What are people going to do? If you lost your job, not you personally, but say if you lost your job and then you can't find another job, but you've got rent to pay or you've got a mortgage and you can't pay it, then what? Okay, you go and get a loan. Okay, can you get a loan? I don't know. Then what? I use your credit card. Oh, yeah, but I've got a student loan to pay 300 quid a month off every year. I'm 50 grand in debt on my student loan as well. Did a degree. There's another thing. People do degrees. Like 95% of people who do a degree don't use that degree in the world they're in right now. Like it's crazy.
6-figure debt.
6-figure debt around the neck. And we have to take responsibility. And in the age I'm at in my 40s now, we have to take responsibility to say to these kids, as someone who's been to uni and God, it was great when I was there. As a parent now, you can't go to the kid, go to uni, it's the best thing ever. It was great when I was there. Because now it's not great. A prime example today, Bournemouth University employ 2,000 people. They've made 500 people redundant over the last few months. Today they're making another 200 people. What's it telling you? It's telling universities aren't even working. Universities used to be back in the day, if you went and got a degree, you were a very small percentage and you would go and get a job easier because you've got a degree and you've applied yourself and your starting salary would be on a lot higher than most. Now it's not. No one cares you've got a degree. I've never looked at anyone's CV in my life. I don't care if you've got a degree or not. It's about the person.
You buy people.
I buy into people. Things have got to change. Things are changing massively, but what I'm scared of is this whole 4-letter word, what should scare a lot of people, and that's the word debt. The country's in debt. Football clubs are in debt. Rugby clubs are in debt. Professional support, no. I was taught as a kid, never have debt. The only debt you should have is your mortgage or your house. If you're lucky enough to pay off your house, wonderful. If you're not, that's the only debt you should have around your neck. In my opinion.
Yeah. Some people now buying cars with debt and that sort of thing. So.
I know people pre-pandemic were driving around in nice 4x4 Range Rovers. Post-pandemic, they're stuck on that Range Rover paying £1,000, £1,200 a month. I've seen a lot of people driving nice cars now getting back to reality because, or moving up from a 700 grand house to a 1.7 million pound house because the interest rates were only 1%. Well, now they're 4.5%. People have come unstuck. There's debt's scary. It really is. But I think it's, the scariest part of debt is seeing the young kids now using Klarna, buying a pair of trainers.
Crazy, isn't it?
Oh, you can pay for 3 months.
Trainers.
Now it came out the other day. Now fast food takeaways are now saying you can buy a hamburger, chips, and a drink, and get yourself into debt, and you can pay over 3 months. Just pay us a £2 a month. What's this world coming to, man?
Yeah.
No one's ever taught about money at school. No one. So how are you meant to go in later life and know about money? No one's ever taught business at school.
Podcasting really comes in.
Agree.
Like hearing messages like yours. And the purpose of my podcast is to try to showcase a lot of these people that are maybe overachievers in society and saying this is an option for you instead. You don't have to go down that traditional route.
Yep.
And we need people. We need more people like this. We need more people like you in voices in government, and voices to the younger generation.
Yeah.
And I think it's inspiring what you're doing with the Gen Zs that you're employing. You're not just saying, I'm going to go for the person that's got the experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to hire somebody because they're the right person, and they're going to be on this journey with me, and I'm going to give them a chance.
They're like sponges. Gen Zs are like sponges, but you've got to give them the freedom to be sponges and give them the freedom to be creative.
Yeah.
Then let them go. Just guide them. Let them make their own mistakes and keep tweaking, but don't say to them, oh, you failed at that. It's nothing to do with failure. I don't even failure in my vocabulary. It's about tweaking. Well done. You've done that well. Just tweak it again. Go again.
Yeah.
And they push boundaries, and every day we're improving 1%. They keep me on my toes. Yeah.
Dodge, to finish up.
Yeah, mate.
Why are you doing all this? What is it? What's the motivation throughout your life to do all this?
Wow, it's a deep question, that, Jay. In different phases of my life, I guess I was doing it initially, setting up businesses was to earn money. I always wanted my own house. When you're living in a 2-bed flat above a pub all your life is going up, you're living in a flat with all sorts going on downstairs in the pub, toxicity and seeing everything. So all I wanted to do was ever just own my own home. And my parents, like, in living in a pub, you just eat the pub food. We'd never sit down as a family ever. So I wanted all these things that my friends had. You go around their house, mum and dad were cooking together. Mum and dad are laughing together and having fun together, and they're in the garden playing. We'd never had any of that. So the first phase of my life was to earn money, was to buy my first property, and that's what I did in my first year of promoting nightclubs. It was in Brixton, right next to the prison.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
God, that was a lovely place. Jesus. It was a beautiful place, but it was actually, I just need to get on the ladder. I couldn't afford Clapham at the time, and everyone was leaving uni and going to Clapham, and I was like, right, going to Brixton. But why am I doing all this? I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a legacy as someone who was never taught just get up and done, had self-belief, believe in yourself, back yourself, build teams of people around you, create things that no one had created, be a pioneer of things, from student nights to the sportswear brand to a festival to now a podcast. And podcast now, really, because I wasn't a face before doing podcasting. I was just a face in the world I was in, which was nightclubs and festivals. Now you're a podcast host. You get recognised a lot of places you go, and people have listened to you. You're in their ear the whole time. If people like your podcast, they'll flick it on when they go to work. They flick it on in the car. They flick it on when they're at home and they're bored or whatever. And all I can do is give my experiences. And if anyone's listening to this and they just take one nugget out of it, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
Because it will set someone on a complete trajectory of their life. Someone might be listening to this in the corporate world going, bloody hell, he's actually right. I'm 5 years in. What am I doing in my life? I need that business I'm always thinking. Because everyone's thinking about businesses. Everyone's thinking about ideas, but no one executes. Yeah? Be the person that executes. But the reason why I'm doing all this now at the age of Matt is to leave a legacy that my young boy is proud, and my wife's proud, and more importantly, my old man's proud.
Your dad's a legend.
My dad's a legend, mate.
Yeah, I've seen him at the photo. He's in good nick for his age.
He's an unbelievable nick.
Yeah.
Have anyone listening out there who's got a dad or is a dad, go to episode 245.
Okay.
I think it is. Dill, can you check if it's 245, please? But yeah, go and have a listen to 245. I just want to, he's been my hero my whole life, and we've got a great relationship, and I want to have that relationship with my son. I am having that relationship with my son, and got a nice little family around me.
Yeah, amazing. Where can people find you if they're not aware of you already?
Just type in Dodge into YouTube, Spotify and Apple, and into any of the social media channels. It should pop up.
Look, I really appreciate this conversation, and I've really, really enjoyed this. And I just, again, thank you for the sort of being there for occasion when I've needed you over the last couple of years.
My pleasure,
appreciate
mate.
it.
My pleasure. Also, I've just got to say, you're a very good podcast host.
Thank you.
The reason why I say that is good podcast host, ask good questions and let someone speak. So respect you, mate.
Thank you.
Good man.